Hi everyone, it's James here from Production Expert. Now, I've been working on a track this week, and when it came to adding effects and kind of the mix, as it were, I found myself really bored with my choice of reverbs. So I've been looking around for something a bit different, something new, something I hadn't tried before. And as part of the All Access Pass from Slate Digital, you get a thing called Verbsuite Classics, which is a association between Slate and LiquidSonics. So what I thought I would do in this video is we'll jump over into Pro Tools and I'll show you how I've been using some of the amazing modules in the Verbsuite Classics suite, who knew, and show you what I've been doing with them and let you have a listen to how cool these reproductions of, quite frankly, some of the most vintage and famous reverb processors the world has ever known. So let's dive over into Pro Tools and get reverberant. So we're going to start with drums. I can't think why I'd like to start there. Let's solo that, and I'm going to mute the return for the drum reverb, just so you can hear how the drums sound on their own. That sounds pretty cool. But what I want to do is I want to put these drums into an acoustic space. That's generally how I use reverb. I'm not one of these guys who goes over the top for kind of loads of effects and stuff like that. I want to put these drums in an acoustic space. Sadly, my drum room, as any of you who've seen those sort of videos that I've done before, is, well, for a drum room, it's microscopic. So I want to give these drums some room to breathe, and I'm going to use an instance of Verbsuite Classics, and I'm using a recreation that they've called the FG250. It's a recreation of a plate reverb, and I think drums and plates go together like peas and carrots, to quote a famous film. So let's unleash Verbsuite Classics, and I will take the plugin in and out a few times so you can hear exactly what it's doing for this drum kit. We'll start bypassed and then I'll bring it in. Now, a plate is, of course, not a real environment. It's not a real space. It's a mechanical reverberator. But this emulation just works so well for drums. I really love it. It gives the drums some space to breathe. They sound huge. Now, if I want to, I can get in and start messing with the EQ of the reverb. I can change the attack, the pre-delay, the chorus, the width, and I can go in and load different devices. There are 8 devices to choose from, all of which are, let's face it, they're pretty predictable when it comes to naming conventions. We then have an input gain and a wet-dry blend. You use the wet-dry blend if you're actually putting the reverb on a channel. In this case, I'm always using the reverb on a bus, so I have it set to fully wet. I then, of course, have the primary control of a reverb, and if I really want to wind this up and give it some plenty of decay time, I can do. Add some chorus in there. Boost the width. Tom-toms really breathe and sound great with a good plate reverb, in my opinion. So something that I do on drums, which I suspect not a great many producers or mixers will do, is as well as having reverb applied pretty much evenly across the kit. And the reason I do that is because they're all in the same room. The dynamic of playing is going to, activate the room in the same way. And I'm trying to recreate a room kind of sound. What I'll also do is I'll also feed my bass drum into the reverb. Now, it's a bit unconventional to do this, but I just think, the kick drum and the snare drum and the hi-hat and the cymbals and the toms are all in the same space. They're all going to actually be activating the room in the same way. I don't do it for all the kick drum mics, of which I have 3, but the kick inside with the most punch and the most kind of attack to it, I'll put a little bit of that, well, in fact quite a lot in this case, into the reverberator. Let's hear how the 3 kick drum mics blend together with the reverb, and of course then I'll mute it as we get a little way through the track. But so you can hear how the reverb is, I think, adding quite a lot to the kick drum sound. And with the rest of the kit. Very, very nice sounding drums in a great acoustic environment. Let's dive over to the rhythm guitar now and see how that sounds without any reverb or effects at all. Now, it's a bit safe and a bit sterile. So what I've done in this case, I've pulled a 480. Now, the Lexicon 480 is probably one of the most iconic reverb and effects processors ever designed, ever used. I would love to have the real thing. But the Verbsuite Classics version sounds absolutely incredible. Have a listen to how this has come together. It's just allowing that guitar part to breathe. It kind of fuses it all together. It's not been beautifully played, I have to admit, but I think the reverb in this case just really adds to it. It puts it in a space. It's pulling it back in the mix as well. It's pulling it right back to give it its own kind of space in the track. Now, one of the reasons these vintage classic reverbs sounded as huge and as deep as they did was because they modulate the tails of the reverb. Now, Verbsuite Classics replicates this modulation because of a clever technology developed by LiquidSonics called Fusion Impulse Response, which fuses multiple captures taken over time, which in turn reproduces this modulation. And I think you'll agree, it sounds pretty damn fine. So, finally, we're going to dive on to the lead guitar. Now, there is a delay on there, but it is going to need some reverb. So, in this case, I've pulled up the FG6000. Now, for any of you who are familiar with the 6000 series of reverb, you know this would have been a fairly hefty chunk of investment to get one of these babies. So, having it in a plugin is really quite lovely. So, we'll start bypassed, then we'll bring it in. I think that sounds really, really cool. It just gives me the vibe that, you know, the guitarist is standing on a big stage playing to a huge crowd without the crowd noise, which is really quite nice. So if we put all of this together and we unmute the bass, we get something which is kind of becoming the intro to this track. So there you go. There's a quick look at Verbsuite Classics from Slate Digital and LiquidSonics. Now, if you have a Slate All Access Pass, you've already got this baby. It's part of the package. If you do want to buy it separately, it is available from LiquidSonics. But hey, the All Access Pass has got to be the way forward to get all those other goodies, including all the training materials, synths, and other goodies you get as part of the package. So I hope you enjoyed that. My name's James Ivey, and I'll see you again very soon for some more Gear Talk.